And while I was there, I saw this guy walking around with a Santa hat, and he didn't look the same. And I looked, and I said, when he went by, I said, "Are you homeless Santa?" And he said, "Yeah, Tony, I am." And I was like, "Wow, what are you doing?" Because he had lost so much weight. She sat down and had her laptop open, and she's looking down and looking at me and looking down, and she goes, "Wow, that medicine's really working good. Your A1C numbers are looking great." And I said, "Really?" I mean, here I'm getting extremely excited because she doesn't know what I know. And she's like, I said, "Well, what are they?"
Tony, how did you find Carnivore?
Sure. Well, actually, it started as a long journey, actually, and that journey kind of started with being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, pretty much uncontrollable at times. And I was going back and forth to the doctors trying to get it maintained. Now we're going back probably 8, 9 years ago. And they tried different medications, but they would affect me in ways that well, one medication just gave me the runs, one of the side effects of it, and but never really was able to control it. And a lot of the frustration over the years was that anything that I tried just didn't like diabetes seemed to be this big mystery to me on how to control it. And you'd go to a doctor and he'd talk about, well, you need to cut down on the carbs, but not all of them because you need carbs and stuff. So I tried balancing it for different years, and about 5 years ago, I woke up one morning at the beach with my family, and we were going to be coming home that day, and I spent most of my time in the restroom, going, "Oh goodness, my stomach." I just had, I don't want to be too graphic, but it was really a lot of diarrhea, and so I started taking some Imodium and things, trying to get that settled before the 6 hour drive home, and um, and I thought it would just kind of go away, but eventually my stomach was just gurgling all the time. It's just like gas moving around, and I noticed that I would bloat and go away. So that began to add even more stress onto everything, trying to figure out what was causing that. And it was starting to make it very difficult for work, just going out, things like that. And I couldn't put my finger on it for, I'm going to say, 5 years. So dealing with all of that and also the blood sugar levels and stuff, about 2 years ago, March 2 years ago, so it's a little over 2 years now, but I hit 500 subscribers on my 1 year anniversary of my YouTube channel, and I was all excited. And I went to work, and then I ended up having a major stroke at work and lost all movement on my right side. And at the hospital, when they did my blood work, it was my A1C was 13.1, so a half a marathon, basically, which was incredibly high. And I was on the medications and stuff like that through that, but it just never seemed to come down. Like I said, I continued to try multiple things, even talking to a doctor. There for a little while, I was doing keto because they said, lower carbs. But even on keto, I still had the stomach issue, and they attributed to a lot of the stroke. One being the high blood sugar, but then two was the stress, and I was under a lot of stress just trying to manage my stomach. And later, I didn't realize how I was going to ever get over that. And still going to the doctors and trying to control things. So fast forward since 2 years ago, the stomach issues just continue to get worse. And if you ever go and watch any of my videos on my channel, literally I film a video a week, and my stomach would be pushed out one week and then back down the next, because it seemed like as soon as I would eat something, but I couldn't pinpoint what it was, my stomach would just blow up, and I would get the burps. and the burps would last sometimes for 3 days, and they were not just burps like just air. They had a sulfur smell to them, which was really really strong. And the everybody was like, "Oh, Dad," and I was like, "Well, I'm sorry, I just burped." It got to the point where I didn't even realize it because it happened so often, and yeah, it was again very frustrating because if I wanted to, um, go somewhere with someone that was just a friend, I would be, trying to control all of that, or maybe not go somewhere just because of how it was affecting me. And with the YouTube, I'm out camping by myself, so it doesn't really matter. But that continued to get worse and worse, and they said, well, the diabetes slows your digestion down. Now, they had put me on Ozempic, and even with taking Ozempic, eventually was the once a week shot. And that did help some with the numbers, but then again, they were still fluctuating all the time. And when I had my blood work back, it was February of this year. I had my blood work results. My A1C, this is here. I don't know if I can show you this here, but right there's A1C, and as you know, it should be between 470 and 550, but I don't know if you can see that there. But it was 11.8 back in February. So, like I said, I was on a once a day pill, and you know, the weekly shot, and still trying to maintain. Now, I do cook a dessert on my channel, so everybody, but I only do it on my channel when I'm out camping. Just everybody likes to see that. So it was starting to become, you know, everybody thinking, "Oh, you got such a sweet tooth," but I did have a sugar addiction. I mean, I could walk by. And I keep saying I could uh, walk by, just a little hangry or something, hungry, and walk into the store just to pick up a water or something. Next thing you know, I'm looking at some of the other items to get back to the water, that my body and my mind is saying, oh, you really need that. You just need a little pick me up. And sure, give you quick energy, but then the downside is the elevated sugar levels. And like I said, I was pretty determined to figure it out, but I kept getting so many conflicting messages, from looking things up online. And this is going back over years, just because I want to control it and I wanted to control it. And, but try this. Well, this doesn't seem to work for me. Try this. Well, that's not working for me. And I had gone to Florida for it's called HangCon. It's a hammock event, and it was for 5 days. And I was really concerned with it because I'm in Pennsylvania, and that was a long drive to get there. And most of my driving was okay. I can get from point A to point B. I wonder if there's going to be a bathroom, or any rest stop I would find. I'd just find a bathroom. So the added stress, and then they say, well, stress elevates your blood sugar as well, and different things. So it was very confusing. Diabetes, type 2 diabetes, very, very confusing to me, and I've never been able to figure it out, right? And even speaking with the doctors, the physician assistants, things like that. But when I was in Florida, I met a gentleman. His trail name, and a trail name is something that's given to you when you're hiking a long trail, was Homeless Santa. And uh, I saw him, he'd wear a Santa hat, and I would just see him around, and he was, not thin or anything. He looked like Santa. He'd wear a Santa hat and shorts and stuff. And I had the opportunity to go to another event in Lancaster, and that was several months later. And Lancaster's a lot closer for me, so it was MAHA, the Mid Atlantic Hammock Hangers Association, And while I was there, I saw this guy walking around with a Santa hat, and he didn't look the same. And I looked, and I said, when he went by, I said, "Are you homeless Santa?" And he said, "Yeah, Tony, I am." And I was like, "Wow, what are you doing?" Because he had lost so much weight from just a couple months. And he said, "Man, I'm doing carnivore." And I said, "I've heard of that." And I had not heard of it much, but I was like, "Really?" And he goes, "Oh yeah." He said, "And I'm type 2 diabetic." And I was like, "Okay." And he said, "I'm off all my meds." And I said, "No way." I said, "You must have just had like pre-diabetes." He's like, "No, no, I was, once a week shot and pills and everything." And I said, "Really?" And so that became in the back of my mind, and I had several issues even there. So I hung my hammock pretty close to the porta potty, so I was a little at the end of my rope because it seemed like it was getting worse. Even though I was limiting my carbs for a lot of times, but I noticed when I eat certain carbs or I would have acid reflux. So I was on also acid reflux medicine like omeprazole, and I would have those. I kept a bottle of Imodium in my car, and I would just drink it right out of the bottle. I mean, I didn't even measure it anymore because I just would just kind of knew how much to drink, but I don't recommend that. But um, so so when I got home from that, I started looking up because he had told me about Homestead How and also Dr. Chafee and also oh, Dr. Eric Berg. And I had gotten home and I decided, I told my wife, I said, I'm going to give this a try. So I watched a couple videos, didn't get very educated on it, because I wanted to get started as soon as I can. I had just figured I'm going to do it. I'm the kind of guy that either does it or doesn't. I don't go halfway in. I just jump full in. And so I spent a Sunday, and that's been 55 days ago. All right. So I haven't been doing this long. Um, so I started on a Sunday. I went to the butcher's, and then I started, I got some ribeye, I got some hamburger meat, and I just cooked everything that I was going to cook. So I prepped for 4 or 5 days just because I didn't know what to expect. I began eating on Monday, so day one. And now, mind you, my blood sugar, even on a fasting morning, would be 135, 170, sometimes 200 after fasting all night. Well, I woke up that Tuesday morning and I checked my blood and it was 71. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to faint, right? Because I've never, meaning I thought I was going to have low blood sugar and, go into diabetic shock. My wife had gone away to visit her mom for several days. So talking to her on the phone, I was like, I'm sleeping. She's a nurse. And I said, I'm going to sleep with syrup next to my nightstand until you get home because I don't want to wake up and not be able to do something because it's so low. So I began monitoring it 3 times a day. And I was fluctuating between, like 109, 85. It was just right in those levels. It was not reaching the 180s, things like that. And I thought, well, something's going on. In fact, when I checked it and it was 85 the one day, I was like, oh goodness, because I still had the sugar cravings, that draw, and you know, but on day three, oh well, when it was 70, 71, I took a couple Skittles that my daughter had. I was like, I better just get it up a little bit. Um, Figured during that 5 day prep, I was kind of almost like I wasn't sure what to expect because nobody could really tell me. I experienced this for myself, and because everybody is different. But for me, I was just concerned because I didn't know where it was going to go. And then for on day 3, now if you'd have to go back and look at some of my videos, but by day 2, I no longer bloated up. All right. My stomach has been like this since day 3. It never bloats. I don't have burping anymore. So I'm like, something's going on. Something's going on. Now, day 5, 6, I was really sluggish. I mean, I was tired. And I now know that that can be what's called like the carnivore flu. But it was actually my body, after listening to Dr. Berg and Homestead How and stuff, talking about the digestive tract, is used to burning so many carbs for energy that now my body's learning to do fat for energy. And I was like, oh, I like that. So, and I've always loved the fat on like a steak. I'd always go around the table say, "You eat that?" when my wife was done, because they like to cut it all off. But I really like the flavor of it balanced with the protein. But I didn't know differently before. It was just because I like the taste of it. Um, so now I'm thinking, okay, I've got a blood test coming up. All right, which was on day 46. All right, so this is just last week. So I go in for the blood test. Now, I didn't say this. I mean, I was sharing it with my subscribers on my Sunday Night Live. They started seeing me what I used to cook. The backpacker meals, you just add water, high caloric for hiking. Um, all of a sudden, I'm cooking a ribeye in a parking lot, for my camps, and I'm doing salmon, and eating salmon packs and stuff. And I was explaining to them that I'm starting to introduce that I'm carnivore, but I did not tell them one fact because I didn't have blood results. I didn't say that I stopped all of my medication, because when it was 71, I'm like, I don't want to take this shot again. And I was due for a shot on day 2, but it was 71. And I'm like, I don't want to take the risk of it dropping really low with that once a week shot. So I decided not to take it. That was on, you know, 8 weeks ago. And then because I was still having good numbers, my daily pill, I'm like, well, by day 5, I went, I wonder if I should stop that. Maybe that's giving me false results. I want to see where I'm at. So I stopped that. I don't recommend this. I did not tell my doctor, but I also didn't tell anyone about it. And except for my wife and stuff. But and some close friends, and they were like, "Oh, you better be careful." And I was like, "Well, yeah, I know it. We'll see how things go. I've got a blood test, and then as soon as the blood test gets back, the results, I'll know." So I did the blood test, and I had to wait a whole week. So just when was it? Thursday of this week, I went in to my doctor's visit, and they took me in the room, weighed me, and I've lost maybe 6 pounds, but that's not what I'm trying to do, lose weight. I'm trying to balance that blood sugar. Now, I stopped even my blood pressure medicine as well. Like I said, I stopped all medications, my water pill that I was on, and yeah, the once a week shot, and also the daily pill. So my thought was, okay, we're going to see where I'm at. And I went in to get the results just on Thursday, and I went into the room. They weighed me and everything, and said, "Okay, the PA will be right in to see you." And so I'm sitting on the little table on the crinkly paper, trying not to make noise. and she walks in, um, and she had a young I guess, intern shadowing her that day, and so he was taking all kinds of notes. And I welcomed them both and said hi. And she sat down and had her laptop open, and she's looking down and looking at me and looking down, and she goes, "Wow, that medicine's really working good. Your A1C numbers are looking great. And I said, really? I mean, here I'm getting extremely excited because she doesn't know what I know. And she's like, I said, well, what are they? And she said, they're 7.1. And I said, get out. I said, 7.1. She says, yeah, everything that we're doing is working great, with the balance of the meds. And I said, well, I said, I haven't taken my once a week shot for 8 weeks. And her jaw dropped a little bit. And I said, I haven't had the once a day diabetic pill for 7 weeks. And then her jaw dropped even further. And she said, well, what are you doing? And I said, well, I started the carnivore diet. And she goes, oh, well, what about vegetables for your vitamins? And I said, well, I take a liquid vitamin every once in a while and, things like that. And I said, you're going to monitor that, correct, on my regular blood tests? And she said, oh, yeah, we'll monitor that. But fiber, what are you doing for fiber? I said, look, I said, for the last 5 years, because I've been coming to y'all for 5 years, we've been trying to figure out what's going on with my stomach, the burping and the diarrhea. I mean, we're talking literally water for 5 years. And when I even called the hospital, because you see those reports that say, oh, if you've had that for diarrhea for longer than 3 days, call the emergency room. And so I would call the hospital and said, hey, I've had diarrhea now. They said, well, how long? I said, well, like, this was back a while ago. I said, 3 years? Oh, you mean 3 days? I said, no, 3 years. Well, check with your doctor. I think maybe, are you taking Imodium? Are you taking Pepto? And I was like, yeah, my doctor's been telling me about that, but I don't want to live the rest of my life having to have either a tablet or a bottle with me just in case. And it would only slow it down a bit. It wouldn't never got rid of it. So for 5 years, basically had no form, which I even had them check me for parasite, intestinal parasite, and things like that. Nothing. I had colonoscopies, endoscopies, sending me to specialists to do all that stuff, and they all came back normal. And so I knew it was above where they were going. It was something outside the realm of what they were really educating, because I couldn't educate myself with it. So when I saw these numbers, I was blown away. And so her and I began to talk a little bit, and I told her that I am taking the real salt, doing red mint salt. And I said, how's my blood pressure? She said, it's great. Yeah, I was on lisinopril for blood pressure. I stopped that 7 weeks ago. And like I said, my results may not be someone else's results, right? Right. This is my personal journey, my personal experience, and I know nothing except for it's working. Right. Right. It's really, really been a blessing to me. And, even with the stroke, I'm still recovering. Like this side, I'm talking with this arm because I've got to remember to use it. But you'll see, I've got, even from the hospital, I started a playlist, stroke recovery. You got about 63 videos on that, and it's just been my journey with that. Like I'm about 75% back on this side, but it's slow, But yeah, I feel amazing, amazing. Just the amount of energy, like when I said I was going through those 3 days, about day 5, 6, and 7, and I was feeling really worn out. I mean, to the point where I would have pulled over and slept in the back of my car. My car's set up for car camping, so I can do that. So, in fact, I have done that already. But I was like, oh my goodness, I need a nap. I don't take naps, but I need one. That's how bad it was. And on day 7 in the afternoon, it was like, huh. I felt a little pick me up. And then by the end of day 7 and into day 8, I had more energy than I've had in years. And over the weeks, I can't sleep longer than, say, 8 hours. I used to go, oh my goodness, I need 8, 10, 12 hours, And if I didn't get that much and I tried to, muscle through the day, I would be just done. I mean, totally done on the next day. Because a lot of times when I go out camping, I film and, I'm doing the editing while I'm out there so I can not have so much to do the next day. But sometimes I'd only get 2 to 3 hours of sleep and then got to set the camera up for the sunrise and different things like that. So it would really wear me out. Um, that doesn't do that to me anymore. I feel like I felt with the exception of just the movement of my arm and my leg um, 20 years ago. Yeah. Now I'm 58, going to be 59 next month, and it's been really interesting seeing the journey of all of my subscribers that watch the channel that don't totally know what's going on, except where I said, hey, I'm doing Carnivore. I do a Sunday night live every Sunday, but I've been premiering like my camping videos on Thursday nights, and just to see all the comments, oh my goodness, is Tony working out? Boy, he looks like he's really working out and exercising and stuff. And they know with my recovery, I really can't go work out and stuff. I have not changed a thing in at all, but just and I think it was I don't remember, it was I think it was Dr. Chafee. I was listening to him. He said, you're eating muscle meat, so it's going into muscle meat, the leaner, building the muscles and stuff. And I don't know. It's been tremendous, Dave. It really, really has.
That's awesome. So just on the diarrhea, things like that, like
Yeah.
the whole in 55 days, you've completely changed the way you go about your day because you don't have to
Oh,
manage things anymore, like with the blood sugar and all that kind of thing, and then thinking, am I close to a bathroom and all that kind of all
absolutely.
that management's gone.
Absolutely. And it's not only gone the stress of it for me, but for my family. My wife and our six kids, they're almost all out of the house now, but just even to go anywhere with them, and my wife did do a little bit of a battle with IBS for a little while. So I was kind of familiar with what she was going through. And, but, mine would just be constant, and I could literally not eat anything because I was trying to avoid eating because I didn't know what it was going to do to me. And something that would work uh, 2 days earlier may not work on the third day. I would all of a sudden I would just blow up. And when I did about uh, day 20ish, I uh, saw Dr. Berg had a discussion on intestines, and that drew me in because that's what I was dealing with. But I still didn't know why. What caused it? And that's what you always go to the root cause. Well, in anything you go to the root cause, but sometimes in the medical field, not to say anything bad, but they don't deal with the root cause. They deal with the symptoms. But even they were dumbfounded pretty much, trying different things. I thought, well, I can try things on my own. And I am so blessed that I found Carnivore. But when I was watching Dr. Berg on the intestinal one, he explained that my stomach acid was weak, and um, enzymes weren't killed in the stomach acid, and they got into the next portion of your intestines. And enzymes flourish in that section of the stomach. And if enzymes are flourishing, the bad ones, they say that, it controls what you think to your gut. There's a lot of connections there they're beginning to learn. But that's why I guess they were going, oh, candy bar, or things like this, or drawing you to things. And I've never been a chip eater at all, so chips weren't my thing, but um, so, a lot of people say about the chips and stuff, and I just watched a program the other day where they had those carnivore crisps, these ones here, the grass-fed ones, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to get those and try it because they were doing a big thing that they just had in Texas. They were talking about them and stuff, and so I order them, and oh, I don't like chips, but oh, I like chips. The crisps, they are incredible. So you kind of find the little things that just alternate. But as far as the stomach issue concerned, when Dr. Berg had talked about the intestines and the enzymes, so that day three, four, and 4, 5, and 6, roughly, that was the killing, I believe, of all those enzymes. They were starving to death, you know. And but like I said, my cravings went away by day three. I had zero cravings by day three, and I mean, you know, a lot of people have pizza night, you know, Friday night pizza night. Well, we did that for 30 years with the kids, you know, pizza night. And sometimes I would, you know, just eat a slice or, you know, just eat the cheese off of it. So when I was going keto before, but I could never stick with keto long enough, you know, because I wasn't seeing the results. I was getting so frustrated because I was like, honey, look, I'm not eating all this stuff. You know, I'm counting all these carbs and my numbers aren't different, you know? And so I think I'm more educated on things now with the management of not only the intestinal, but also with the carnivore. Now I've got a lot to learn because this is a journey. And you know, someone says, well, you're going to be able to keep it up. Yeah. Once you experience something like this, which is basically life changing, you know, the biggest life change I had was when I received Christ as my personal savior. That was the biggest one. But this was a life changing experience. And I, you know, just, it's amazing, amazing. And I'm very, very excited to
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah, it is such a massive change.
Yeah.
So how are you eating day to day? To, I mean, it's
Okay.
only been 8 weeks, so how has your eating been?
Very good. So in the mornings, I'll usually get up and drink a, a bottle of water. Like this morning, I drank this liter just before I even got started. And then I had leftover ribeye last night, and there was about half of one. And I just pulled it out of the refrigerator, didn't heat it up because I was headed out the door, and I just bit it and ate it right, you know, the piece of ribeye about that big. And yeah, someone said, "Oh, we're not meant to eat red meat." I was like, "Then why am I biting it?" and able to saw it off with my teeth. And it was cold, and all the, you know, the fats and stuff like that, you know, were congealed around it, you know. And that before would have been like, I don't like the texture of it. But now that I've done it for 55 days, that was like to me eating a candy bar. I got that much, you know. Oh, and the thing was, if I did eat candy, just the crash that you would get from it, and then the guilt of, you know, oh, it's going to affect my sugar. But it was almost like a, you know, fight or flight. But I wasn't able to fight it. I was fighting to it, you know, and just eating it quick, and then go, oh, I'll do better later. This is something the carnivore that it's really, I like it so much more than the keto. Not to say anything bad about keto. That just didn't work for me because I'm just kind of not a counter guy. I want something I don't have to worry about. I just want to eat and go and do things. I've got things to do, place to go, people to see, you know, that kind of stuff. But uh, so this morning I ate that. Usually, what I'll do, especially during that prep, those 5 days I think are critical. If you don't prep for those 5 days before you even jump into it, most likely you'll struggle. You know, so I did a lot of like ground beef, cooked it like you were going to make a taco, but no seasoning. You know, just small, and I put it in a container. And then so in the morning, what I would do is scramble, whip up some eggs. But I would throw the hamburger in there while the pan was heating up. The hamburger would just heat up, and I would just dump about four eggs in it, and then just scramble it, and just have an egg scramble with beef. Um, And then learning to balance the fat is something that I've learned now as well. Um, I do chomps, which is a beef stick. Sometimes I'll keep that. Where are they at? I was going to say a wrapper in there, but I got rid of it. But I'll always. I also made bacon as part of my prep. So I will eat bacon. Maybe I'll keep it in a little bag. I'll put it on a cookie sheet and cook it so that they're real thin or real straight and get cold in the refrigerator. But they're not chewy. They're more between the crispy and the chewy. And I'll keep those. I took those with me wherever I went for those first several days. And if I started getting a hankering, I don't know if anybody knows what that, like a urge to eat something. Um, I'd pull out a piece of bacon and just I maybe eat two pieces of bacon, um, maybe just one. So that kind of stuff. So generally, my bigger meal is in the evening, where I will do. I learned. I found my local butcher, and I go in and I'll if I got hamburger meat, I'll say, hey, that chuck roast, can you throw this chuck roast in your burger maker and get it in the ground beef? And he's like, sure. I said, hey, do you got any extra fat trimmings off anything? He's like, sure. I said, how much for the fat trimmings? He's like, 99 cents a pound. I said, I'll take them. And what I've learned to do is I'll take them and I'll cut the fat trimmings real thin, put them on a cookie sheet and kind of bake it like I do the bacon. They get real crispy, kind of like a pork rind, and they're small. And so I'll just have a couple of those with me, just for, like, I call them little fat bombs, and just pop it in my mouth and just chew it. Or if I'm eating something that doesn't have enough fat, I'll eat one of those, with whatever I'm eating. Yeah, yeah. But dinner is
Nice.
usually, oh yeah, dinner is usually I do salmon or ribeye cheeseburgers. The burger, like I do, night before last, I did two big cheeseburger patties out of that ground chuck, and then I did an egg, put the egg between both patties, so made an egg sandwich with my buns being the burgers, and they were good. Yeah.
Very nice. And so at this stage, how is your wife feeling about all this? Especially you mentioned she was a nurse. So this kind of, I imagine this would go against all the training she's ever had.
Yeah. So when I told her that I was doing it, she's like, "Okay." She said, because I said I met homeless Santa down in Lancaster, and he's telling me all these results, and I'd known someone else that started it back in December. He's down 89 pounds since December, and off all of his SSI medicines. Young guy, about 22 years old, and so those were my two reference points. And I told her, and she goes, well, I sent you a message about that, checking out the carnivore. And I was like, oh, yeah, I do recall that. But I didn't really delve into it. And, but she always questions a lot of things. She does a lot of research and stuff. And she was trying to help me as well. But we were both very confused because, when you listen to the ADA, it says all these guidelines and stuff, but I was applying those guidelines and they weren't working, or there were very mixed results, and I could never. So most people are they want to know what caused it and how to fix it. But the with most things, especially men, we want solutions. We want to solve problems, right? Sometimes we try to do that with our wives and it doesn't work, but our intentions are always good, right? But we always want to solve problems, and so my mentality was, okay, it's affecting me, but I don't know why I'm having these issues. And even bouncing things off of her, she's, well, maybe try this, maybe try that. And um, so she's really on board with it because she's seeing the results. I mean, we're married 38 years. So um, she's seen the struggle that I've been on, for multiple years. And so she's really on board, and she's actually curved a lot of what she's eating too. I mean, she's always eating healthy, exercise, things like that. But I remember when I checked my blood, earlier before carnivore, and I'd check it, and it'd be, like 180 or 200. She goes, I should check mine. I'm like, okay. And she would check it, and we just ate a meal, and she goes, what's the result? And I said, 89. you know, so, she's like, oh, okay, good. You think it's too low? I said, no, no, I love that low. you know, but some of the stuff that I've discovered is most recently, because even on carnivore, checking your blood, I didn't know about the dawn effect. And that's one of the things that I mentioned to my doctor. I said, I said, I would go to sleep, not eat anything, throughout the night. I would be at 109 before I went to bed, and I would wake up in the morning at 126 or 132. And I said, how is that? And everybody was talking about the dawn effect. And so when now that I have an answer for it, and I can understand why now. And I mentioned that to the PA, and she goes, "Oh yeah, it's called the dawn effect. Your body normally releases." And I'm like, "Why didn't you tell me this years ago?" Because that could be some of the frustration that I was dealing with. Was like, I'm on eating so little carbs, but why is my numbers going up when I didn't eat any carbs? So there's education out there, but there's so much conflicting education and a lot of tight mouth on it too, because there's everybody reacts differently. And but I know this is working for me, so I'm excited. And Lisa's on board. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Nice.
she's doing more of a very low carb, but more protein. Because when I'm making a steak, I'm making it for both of us, or making salmon. She's eating it too, and usually make salmon and a couple some scallops, something like that.
Nice. So 55 days in, this is it for you going forward. There's no going back.
Oh no, 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 no. we had our kids over the other night and some of their friends, and we ordered pizza for them because they were helping to do something. And my wife popped her head in the door and she said, "You want a piece of pizza?" And it's from a place that we used to get pizza from a lot. And I looked at her and said, "No, why would you ask that?" And she said, "Are you sure? Just a little piece?" I said, "No, it'll kill me." And, so that's almost the mentality that I have now. It's like, well, basically, it'll kill me. May not be as soon as I eat it, but over a long term, absolutely. In fact, it was killing me. So why? And she laughed, and she knows we're joking and stuff. And she said, "I didn't think so, but just checking." And but my friends, my family are very, very supportive, and I mean, I've got a couple friends that are like, well, I've got my eyebrow raised on this when I first told them on like day 5, and we'll wait to see those blood results. And I shared my blood results on it with them, and they're like, oh, because they know what I was struggling with as well. And but yeah, no going back. No.
Nice. So, I didn't really follow up on this before, but was there any further things said to you by the doctor? You mentioned she was like her mouth was open, her mouth was even wider, wider, wider.
Oh, yeah.
Like, had
Um,
she tried to push you back towards a different kind of diet or back onto the meds?
yes. So yes and no. Like she was trying to get me to take. She said my once a day pill that I was on, Jardiance is what I was on. She said, well, you should probably continue that one because it really does other things like for your kidney. And I said, how's my kidney? And she goes, oh, they're fine according to the results. I said, okay. She said, now your cholesterol is a little elevated, but it was already somewhat elevated before, but it always has been ever since I was a kid. And I said, oh, okay. So she said, maybe continue on the Avastatin. And I said, you mean start it back up? Um, she goes, yeah. Um, whether or not I do or not, because I'm trying to research because everything they've told me to do before hasn't worked. It's gone in reverse. So I figured I would not start certain things that they kind of little bit recommended, but I do have a list of what they took me off of. Can I share that? So she was really intrigued. Okay. So part of her thing as we talked, and she would say, oh, well, you need the fiber. And I said, well, the fiber, I'm going. And I literally go once every 2 days, maybe three. And she goes, are you blocked up? And I said, no, not at all. I go normal. She goes, was it real hard? And I said, no. And for the first time in 5 years, anything that I go sinks. It doesn't float, or cover the whole top of the water. Sorry being just so descriptive, but, I want people to know what I'm going through, or was going through. But she goes, well, I'll tell you what, we'll do the blood work again instead of, we'll push it out to 4 months. So I go back in October, and she said, I want you to go ahead and discontinue or continue discontinuing, but I'm going to take it off of your chart. Omeprazole, the once a week shot, the Ozempic for the acid reflux, lisinopril for my blood pressure, my baby aspirin that I was taking once a day, and hydrochlorothiazide for the water retention. She removed all of that from my. I was looking to see where the list was. I was right before we went on. I was folding the papers, but I don't see it here real quick. But she did remove those from my chart, so that's good. Yeah, lisinopril, Ozempic, hydrochlorothiazide, and omeprazole. So yeah,
So after your October results, you'll have to come back and let us know what's happening there too.
absolutely, definitely, definitely. I definitely will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So if one of your friends wants to get started with carnivore, comes to you for advice, what advice would you give them to make the transition smooth?
Well, I definitely don't tell them if you're on meds, stop them, because that's not my place, right? I can only tell them what I've done. But what I've told people is by giving my testimony to them, one, it really intrigues them. Like, really, because it is a testimony. It's a testimony of health, and just, we're created. Just our bodies can heal itself. You get a cut and it heals, right? So there's got to be stuff internally too. So when they ask me how to get started, I say, well, what you should do is, one, watch videos. Look up Dr. Berg and Homestead Hal. With him coming out with the Healing Humanity video eventually, here the documentary. But go on and do some research. But first, start cutting down on a couple things before you go do it. Maybe a week or two. Just start cutting down on some of the carbs. Now the addictions are still going to be there because a lot of stuff has sugar in it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it does." And then I tell them, once you're ready to start, the day before, prep. And you know, get food prepared because that's going to be critical to you just getting over that first week. But yeah, and call me, and so I can encourage you. But carry stuff around with you that are like bacon and bits of different things to kind of get you through. And yeah,
Yeah. Nice. So Tony, how can people find you? What could you tell us a little bit about your channel?
yeah, I started the channel about 3 years ago because I was uh, under a lot of stress, so I wanted to get out in the woods. So started doing hiking and things like that. But the channel name is Random Adventures 2.0. I found out that that was sign language when I was out in the Badlands. A couple had asked me, Tony, what's the name of your channel again? I said Random Adventures 2.0, and her face went, what? And I was like, yeah, Random Adventures. And she goes, no, that was perfect sign language. I said, what was? She said the 2.0. I said, really? I said, how do you know? She was, I was a deaf school principal for most of my life. And I was like, oh, really? Can I get you on video saying that? But I started the channel March, in 2021. And then was mainly just hiking, and I started adding gold panning, things like that, and became a trail angel, my wife and I, for the Appalachian Trail. That's the trail that goes from Georgia to Maine. And my idea was I wanted to hike it. So before I could get prepared to hike it, I ended up having a major stroke on the 1 year anniversary of my channel. And then I did some of the recovery, and some of the recovery videos are also of me getting back out and trying to camp, things like that. So a lot of camping videos. I do car camping, hammock camping, stealth camping, a lot of different camping and stuff, and also very motivating, inspiring to people that can't get out or do have issues. Just a lot of people do, like, you know, have so many health issues. I mean, now I'm adding carnivore into it, so everybody's going, ooh. And a lot of the subscribers, not a lot, but on my Sunday Night Lives are saying, man, when you said Redmond salt and said you were cooking meat, you must have gone carnivore. And so there is a lot of people out there learning about it, and I'm hoping to inspire others on the channel as well. Because I cook carnivore with my backpack, go out in the woods, just take frozen meat, and by the time I'm ready to cook, it's thawed.
Nice. Awesome. So I'll link to your channel in the show notes.
Oh, well, appreciate that.
No worries. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us, Tony. I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely, Dave. And I look forward to coming back in October sometime.